welcome to the next in the 67 steps, guidelines, frameworks, principles to getting the good life and getting everything that you want out of life. So today we're going to talk about Amazon.com and the $32,000 brain budget, the education budget that you must institute. So this one's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If you look, I don't know what you use to do your books every day, and I don't care if you're listening to this and you're an 18-year-old student or if you're 70-year-old, industry mogul running huge businesses. You should be accurately doing your books every day, or I'm sorry, every month, but even ideally sometimes every day. So going through, I use QuickBooks, you can use Xero, there's a couple of different software programs out there. Keep track of your expenses, whatever tool. If you want to keep it real simple and use Excel, you can do that too. I think QuickBooks Online is the cheapest, simplest solution for most people. 29 bucks a month, 39 maybe. Anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're not talking about accounting. What we're talking about is taking an audit of your financial life. And remember, we talked about these 25 cognitive biases that cause errors, one of them being misweighting. This area of finance for you is probably one of the biggest areas where you suffer from misweighting. I know that's been an issue for me in the past, and it's something I have to fight against all the time. Again, misweighting means you're majoring in minor issues and minoring in major issues. So look at your revenue, income that you make. Whether you're, like I said, self-employed, work at a company, own your own businesses, whatever it might be. Your take-home money means you've paid your taxes, you've covered your fixed expenses. Those are your fixed, food, shelter, all that stuff, the necessities of life. You're left with what we call a discretionary amount of income, right? So let's say you make, in America, the average person makes $51,000 a year. So that's about $4,000 a month. So let's say you make $4,000 a month after payroll taxes, FICA, all that good stuff. You're probably left, let's just say, use round numbers, even though it's not exact. You're left with $2,500. You pay your rent is $700. You pay this, that, and the other thing. You're left with, let's say, $500 discretionary income. Now go back, if you haven't done this, is a kind of scary thing to do. Go back the last 3 months of your life, the last 3 weeks, and go, what did I do with my discretionary income? That's why I said you're going to need something like QuickBooks, Excel, Xero, whatever piece of software. Sometimes your online banking will allow you to do this. I can almost guarantee you, unless you're an extraordinary person in terms of standing out, extraordinary financially, you're spending money on stuff that is consumer driven as opposed to investor driven. What I want to talk about today is taking about 30% of your discretionary income from now on and spending it on doubling down and investing where? Not in the stock market, not in your own business, but investing in your brain, okay? Doubling down on your skills. We've talked about this, the tool belt of skills that you should have. So again, to get what you want, here's my favorite book right here. Or one of my favorite. It's hard for me to know what my favorite is. In fact, if you listen to my YouTube, I recently put out a YouTube with one book that's skyrocketed to almost my new favorite. It's the Will Durant book, the Great Ideas or something like that. Look up Will Durant, Great Ideas. So here, Charlie Munger is talking about continually having this investor mentality. So you make, let's say, $10,000 discretionary. Some of you listen to this are entrepreneurs. You're already making good money. $1 million a year. The ratio shouldn't change. Okay? I was reading this book today called Diet Cults or something like this. It's actually a really good book. What is it? Let me look up what the name of this book is. I put it on. If you're on my Instagram, you'll see it's called Diet Cults by Matt Fitzgerald. And he was talking about the development of the human brain, how you and I have adapted over time through generations, your great grandparents. Your brain has developed into this tool, okay, that has the potential to give you everything you want. So remember, as we're going through the 67 steps, you're going to notice a repetitive kind of theme. It's all about the brain. Things happen in the brain, okay? So, your brain, think of it like a kitchen. You're in the kitchen of life. Uh, a lot of people are trying to be master chefs, cook up something amazing, but don't have enough raw ingredients. They're making chicken noodle soup. They have broth and chicken. That's it. But that would not be a very successful dish if you had a big party and you're like, I've got some amazing food. People are like, what is it? It's like broth and chicken. They're like, oh, you didn't want to add some carrots, some celery, a little garlic, a little salt, a little pepper? No, 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 no. This is all I cook with. I cook with 2 ingredients. Well, that analogy obviously is pretty clear, but if you look at your life and you look at the vast majority of humans inhabiting our planet right now, they're cooking with 1 or 2 ingredients, some maybe less, and some more. So for you, your ability to cook up an amazing life for yourself, not to stretch this metaphor, but it's exact same principle. You need lots of ingredients, and primarily these ingredients come from external sources, okay? Boom, boom. I was reading about, I don't know, Jean-Jacques Rousseau or one of these great Renaissance people of our time, and they, for sure, were an amalgamation of outside forces. The great philosophers, whether it was Wittgenstein, the great inventors, Tesla, my mentor, Alan Nation, he said, Tai, I've never had an original idea in my life. I just go to where successful people are and I implement it into my life. So, of course, now some people kind of come at the other angle and say, well, what are you saying, Tai? Sometimes I go in a dark room and I just sit there and I come up with these great ideas. And I'm like, yes, that's like stirring the ingredients. So your job as a human, more than to actually conjure up raw ingredients, your job is to stir them in new ways, okay? As you can stir in, let's say, the health ideas or bodybuilding ideas of Arnold Schwarzenegger and blend that in with the investing ideas of Warren Buffett, the humanitarian ideas of Martin Luther King Jr. or Mother Teresa. If you can blend that in with the artistic abilities of Pablo Picasso and the musical abilities of Bach and the concepts, as you'll blend that into your own unique kind of soup. And that'll be your life, and that's what will make you stand out, right? And obviously you'll have some strengths. Maybe you're more artistic. You'll blend more of those ingredients. But my point being, to get these external ingredients downloading into your brain will take a process that basically involves reading, involves being mentored, it involves listening to audiobooks, videos, going to seminars, traveling to find people. When I was in my early 20s, one of my first businesses I saved up, we made a profit. I got a small amount of it, $17,000, and I used that. I invested. I flew around the world. I did a trip around the globe. I've been to like 51 countries, I think, maybe more. And I was going there specifically. I went to Tasmania to meet a guy named Bill Mollison who started permaculture, pretty famous guy. I went to New Zealand, met the top guys doing organic agriculture there. I went to Ireland. I went to Argentina and Chile and around the United States and Mexico and Canada, all over with this as my goal. So for you, that's going to take some money. It does take money. And the beautiful thing about money, a lot of people try to say either, one extreme or the other about money. And I was just reading the famous saying, in medio veritas, I think that's how you say it. I mean, the truth is in the middle. So some people are like, money can't bring you happiness. It's materialism. Somebody sent me yesterday a YouTube video. And he said, what do you think of this documentary on money? And the video starts out by going, money has become the all-consuming thing in modern world, blah, blah, blah. And this guy had asked me on my YouTube. I try to answer if you comment there, and I don't always get to it, but he asked me if I thought this movie was accurate. And I was like, well, that movie is inaccurate in the sense that people have always been going after scarce resources. 10,000 years ago, a million years ago, any species today, yesterday, they're all fighting over scarce resources. If you don't believe me, look at the ants around your house. They're fighting over the scarce amount of food. And that extrapolated large, that's economics. So I think the movie was incorrect in that money is not somehow newly causing pressures on the world. But let me not diverge too much off topic. What I was saying about money is, because we're talking about this Amazon and this $32,000 brain budget, money has the potential to, like a pit bull, turn on you and eat you and kill you, rip your throat out, or it has the potential to save your life. A Rottweiler, a pit bull, they can do both. So what you want to do is go, how the heck can I use this tool not to kill myself, but to bring more good into my life? So the simplest way is taking money, discretionary income, and investing in skills. Really, there's nothing you can do. I get asked, one of the most common questions, in the top 10 most common questions I get is, what's the best thing I can invest in? And I'm like, well, depends how much money you have. If you have an incredible amount of money, then you need to look at many options, alternative investments. You may want to invest obviously in stock market, in tax deferred or tax incentivized IRAs, 401ks, all these kind of things. Depending, some of you aren't in the US, but you probably have that equivalent thing somewhere in the world. Once you go beyond that, you still have some more discretionary income. You have a choice. Some people want to invest in their house. Some people want to pay off their credit card debt. Some people want to invest in having fun, and some people want to loan their money out. I can't answer what you should do with that, but I'm saying of your discretionary income, I want you to try 30% or so invested into you. So what's a practical example? Well, I was looking a year or two ago. I had my bookkeeper, and I was like, how much did I spend on Amazon last year? I buy a lot of books. You can see some of the books here, but I have stacks all over my house, a couple different libraries, and still books that are still never been taken out of the boxes when I moved to this house here in Hollywood. So I was like, how much do I spend on Amazon? And he came back and said, last year I spent $32,000 on Amazon. Now, some of that I buy other stuff, paper towels, but paper towels, office supplies. But I would say the vast majority of that $32,000 was on books. Now, my advice to you on books, by the way, try to buy used. I buy the used. Who cares? I don't care if a book's, I don't like them if they're completely marked up, but I get books sometimes but most of my books I get for under $10. So I don't know, I maybe bought 500 to 1,000 books that year. And, some are hardcover. This Charlie Munger book is $85. I suppose a great investment. So you're going to need some money. I tell this story, you may have heard it before. I was at this conference in Santa Monica, and I met this guy. His name was Romeo, and interesting guy from Miami, a really smart guy, and went to lunch, and he started telling me his story. And part of his story was because he had a couple people with him that he was like mentoring. And I was like, tell me how you got into that. He said, well, I used to own a painting company. I was a partner in New Jersey, and I sold part of my business. He didn't tell me the exact amount of money, but I kind of surmised from listening to him, he probably walked with many millions of dollars from this partnership. Then he said he got bored, and he decided he wanted to get back into some kind of business. And I said, what'd you get into? He said, well, I decided I remember all these rich people's houses that I used to paint in New Jersey. And he said, I asked them I knew what most of them did. It was real estate. So I said, I like real estate. I've been doing painting. Why don't I try that? So I said, how'd you learn real estate? And he said, well, I started going to seminars. Seminar after seminar after seminar after seminar. And he started telling, and he said, whenever I went, if they had upsell you into like an advanced VIP group after, you could pay more. If you've ever been to a lot of these seminars, they try to sell you on something at the end. And he's like, yeah, every seminar I went to, Donald Trump's seminar, I can't even remember all the names, I would take the highest package and spend all this money on that. And I asked him at the end of the year, he did it for like a year or two. I said, how much money did you spend, man? It sounds like a lot. He said, I spent $1 million on these seminars. And I probably spent that much. I don't know. I haven't spent $1 million in a year on seminars. But so I was like, wow, was it worth it? And I remember he just turned to me and he was like, Tai, yeah, I can make that much money back like that because I know everything about short sales and this and that. He's like, whenever I need money, I can make money in a week. So again, this is not a guy, I don't know if he went to college. It was kind of like, he reminded me of my dad, like a street smart guy. So he hadn't made any excuses. He hadn't made excuses about the economy. He hadn't made excuses about his education, his background. What he did was, when the rest of the world was spending their money on things that rust, rot, and depreciate. Remember, I've talked about this. The opposite of an investor mentality is investing in things that rust, rot, or depreciate. You only want to invest in things that are worth more later or cause you to be worth more later. So what are the things that depreciate? Just a quick little review of this. Cars depreciate. Electronics, you buy a big flat screen TV. The day you buy that, clothes, the day you buy those, they drop in half. So if you're going to buy a car, don't buy a new car. Warren Buffett, oftentimes the richest man of the year, in the world in any given year. I was reading his thing on cars, and he finally, his old car gave out, and so he sent his daughter's assistant to buy a car. And I always wondered, by the way, if he tries to finance the cars. I'm surprised the car dealerships just don't give him a car. But anyway, he went there, and she came back, your new Lincoln or whatever is 60 grand. And he's like, oh, how can we get it cheaper? And she got him a used one that had hail damage, like some hail had hit but you couldn't notice it. And he's like, I got half off that. Now you might say that's extreme and he's a miser or whatever, but not really, because he does invest in certain things. He has a private jet, and he calls it the indefensible, meaning he can't really defend why he spends millions of dollars on the jet. But I think he's joking about that. It is an investment. He invests in that jet because, one, he bought net jets, so he made it into a business, and that business is increasing in value. Number two, it allows him, that investment allows him to do things, go and look at new investment deals and so on and so forth. So with your life, every discretionary expense that you make, okay, you got some expenses you can't get around. Your taxes, your payroll, somewhat your rent. I mean, you can control that, or your home mortgage, but you're going to have to live somewhere, right? You can be creative, but there are many things you can control. Clothes is one of them, right? I have a friend, he's one of the most, like, this guy defines fashion in Southern California. And he's one of the most fashionable people. And whenever I see him, he's like, dude, he just buys stuff used at like a thrift store or whatever. He's like, I'm getting all these rich people's clothes. And like, you wouldn't know, like, people, he's kind of famous. He's kind of like a rock star kind of guy. I won't say his name, but again, he realizes you got to have clothes, but he doesn't want to invest in things that rust, rot, and depreciate. So if you can, to the extent that you can, free up more cash, because if you can become, maybe you can't be like my friend Romeo, invest $1 million in seminars, but I bet you, like Jim Rohn says, I bet you can double down on your brain a little bit more. I bet you could spend a little bit more on a plane ticket to go visit somebody that has a lot of info in your industry, a lot of knowledge that you can download into your brain. I did it. It's the best use I've ever made of money. Warren Buffett talks about where he invested, I think in the 40s, in a Dale Carnegie course on how to do public speaking. And he has a degree from Wharton, almost the most prestigious school in America, and he keeps his Dale Carnegie certificate above because he says it's more important. And if you know anything about him, he's a well-spoken person in an industry where most people can't speak well. So he's rounded out the tool belt that he has. He's got not just the ability to invest, make money, but also the ability to persuade, the ability to talk. So you got that tool belt to talk to crowds, to be confident, to convey messages. All these things are tools you have to have. What he did is within your reach. Trust me. And now there's even less excuse, because one of the things that you can do, and because this doesn't just apply to money, even though I call it the $32,000 brain budget, Amazon.com. You can also, if you're completely broke, get a library card. The other thing, almost nobody has a library card anymore. Seriously. I was trying to get the stats on it. I read different stats. One place said 5% of people, and another said a lot more, but I have to think it's a low number. Like, do you know any adult that has a library card that goes to a library anymore? But it's free. So if you're completely broke and you can't spend 32,000 or you can't spend $1 million, there's still no excuse. And if you have access to the internet, which you can also get for free at the library, go to Wikipedia. Man, I used to read encyclopedias when I was young. Not all day, but I would read them. They're fascinating. Go and read online Wikipedia. I was just reading about Casanova the other day. I was reading about Hegel, the philosopher. Anytime somebody says something to me that's like, I don't know anything about that, or I don't know anything about that person, especially if they're historical, you can find all that info right here on your phone. So again, I want you to do a blend. I want you to get free information. I want you to get paid information. Some stuff out there. Now, I want to speak on something that's one of the primary reasons I see people not spending money. They're like, Tai, is that book going to be worth my money? Should I get this? Let's take this book, this almanac, $80. Or seminar. People are like, what do you think? Is this seminar worth it? Well, I'll tell you this story. I have been buying things. The second someone now, I have one click on Amazon on my phone. You can see here. Let me pull it up. The second somebody tells me about a book or something, I buy it without thinking. Here's my Amazon. Someone actually just told me about a book, Left in the Dark by Tony Wright. I think that's the book. It's $33. It doesn't even seem to have a used one for some reason. Let me look here. Usually they'll have it's sold out. Okay, but usually you can get a $33 used for like $6 or $7 plus shipping. So I just automatically now, if someone's like, hey Tai, you want to go to this seminar? Like, if it fits in my calendar, I'll go. Why? I started this habit a long time ago. And there's only one thing I've ever bought that I remember wanting my money back. It was some audio teleseminar for $97. And I remember, I think it would have been worth it, but it didn't even happen. Somehow, the guy who was going to teach it didn't even show up, but it was so worth it. I took a Donald Trump course. This is an example. I didn't have much money when I did this. And there was a course Donald Trump was teaching on how to invest in real estate. It's $1,000, which was a ton of money for me at the time. And I bit the bullet and I bought it. What's interesting now is there's been all this controversy. I actually saw some article, some expose, some crazy reporter did on how Donald Trump, there's like a lawsuit against this Donald Trump real estate class because they were saying it wasn't a good class. Well, I personally took that thing, and by the way, I do not work for this, so I'm not vouching for it for any ulterior motive. It was the best thing I've ever taken on learning real estate. They had an audio call-in, like a phone call-in, and nobody showed up on it except me, and they had hired a professor who turned out to be like the #1 professor, I don't know if he was at Harvard or somewhere, of real estate in America. And I was on the phone with him, just me and him. He's like, oh, you're the only one who showed up. And I'm thinking, I talked to him for an hour and a half, and he told me, it was when I lived in San Diego, he was like, man, I think you should invest in Claremont, not La Jolla. If you know San Diego, La Jolla is the beach town. It's really expensive. He's like, go 10 minutes inland and invest in Claremont. It's going to be a good investment. Well, at the time, I didn't have enough money to invest in it. But that guy, I always watched the real estate in Claremont. If I had been able to buy like a $200,000 house is like worth $600,000. If I bought a couple of those houses, I'd have made $1 million from that $1,000 investment course in Donald Trump. And I've seen that over and over. Like I said, this book, I was at the Barnes & Noble with my friend, and I said, dude, you should buy this book because it's a friend who's always broke. Buy this Poor Charlie's Almanac. And he was like, how much is it? I said, $75. He's like, are you crazy? I don't have $75. And I said, what shoes are you wearing right now? And he said, Jordans. I said, how much were those? He said, $160 or something like that. I said, dude, how much are those shoes going to be worth in 1 year? Zero, man. But that knowledge is from a guy who made $1 billion from nothing. He owns a company that is like about 1/30th of the U.S. economy. And the U.S. economy is $15 trillion. That valuation on that company is like $300 billion. It's like a 45th of this one dude is a controlling partner in that. I'm like, why would you buy Jordan? Why don't you wear flip-flops that are $5 and have that in your brain? See, he was misweighting. he was not understanding what you're learning today. And even if you already know this, I want you to double down more. Remember, 30% is only the minimum. If you make $1,000,000, spend 600,000 on doubling back down. And by the way, I use this doubling down term. That's like, you know, you got a hand of poker or blackjack. You think it's a good hand, you bet more on it. So if you begin to do this in these 67 days that you're in this program with me, and it's working, like, do more. Like I said, I've taken one of the things, by the way, I said I've taken different courses. One of the things that got me started in finance, I worked at GE Capital, GE Financial, then was the largest company in the world, and I rose really fast to one of the top people in the country for that, what at the time was the largest company in the world. And how did I do it? Well, I had bought this course online. This is in 2001. I heard about this, I don't know how I found it, an ad by a guy named Corey Rudel. You may have heard of him. He tragically died in a car accident in San Diego. He was racing a Porsche really fast and hit, I don't know, lost control and died. But this was a kid, he was about 28, 29, 30 years old, was making, I don't know, $5 or $10 million a year off the internet. And he put it all out in this book, how you could generate leads and advertise your business. And it was I remember, it was either $197 or $297. Again, I was living hand to mouth. This is right, if you've heard my story, this is not long after I was sleeping on my mom's couch with $50 in my bank account, and I slowly started to rise out of that financial milieu, or chasm that I was in. And one of the things, I bought that Corey Rudel book. It was an online PDF, $200 or $300, and I was like, I wonder if I can apply this to financial stuff. And I started putting up, I figured out how to advertise. I was using, if you know Google AdWords, I was using Google AdWords in March 2001, and it started in February 2001. I was one of the first people to use Google AdWords in the world. And in finance, I was I don't know if I was the first, but I have to think I may have been the first. I was young, I didn't even know what I was doing, right? Well, I started getting so much leads in and was able to sell so many deals, financial deals, that the CEO of GE Financial called me up. His name was John. He called me. He's like, Tai, what in the world are you doing? Are you doing something shady here? How are you getting all this? The average new person in this industry, does, I don't know, $5,000 a month in commissions, and you just submitted 70,000 or something in 1 week. What are you doing? And I didn't want to tell him. So I was like, oh, I'm trying a few things. Don't worry, it's all legit. It was all legit. It was new information because I doubled down on my own brain. I remember that same year I invested in Carlton Sheets. It's an online infomercial. On TV. Back then it wasn't even on the internet. You probably heard of him. And you hear all this controversy, oh, it's a ripoff. Well, I'll tell you a true story. It's about doubling down educationally. There was this guy, I won't say his name because he's a client, I still think, of one of my businesses. So anyway, call him Bob Smith, and he lived in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I went out to visit him. We did a deal together, a finance deal. And while I was there, this guy was rich. I remember he had Corvettes. He had a beautiful wife, a mansion. And I was like, how'd you make your money? And he said, oh, in real estate. And I was like, that's all he told me. He's kind of a mysterious guy. Then I drove home that night. Okay, I had 3 roommates, and I got home like 1 in the morning. Literally, it's a crazy story. I get home 1 in the morning. My roommate Navon had the TV on, and he was watching. I don't know. I guess he went to bed. Maybe I'd fallen asleep. So I flipped while I was getting a turkey sandwich. I remember I was making a sandwich, and the infomercial was on of Carlton Sheets. And what caught my eye is 10 seconds into it, one of the testimonials pops out. It's the guy that I was just at his house earlier that day saying that this is how he made $1 million or whatever in real estate from Carlton Sheets' course. So I called the guy the next day and I was like, is that you? Is that really you? And he's like, yeah, I bought this thing. He's like, and it was the foundation taught me how to invest in real estate. So this guy, who I call Bob Smith, not his real name, that's how he became a millionaire. When everybody else was out investing their money in Jordans, not that there's anything wrong with Jordans. I play basketball. I have a pair of Jordans. But it's the ratio. What's your ratio? I want you, during these 67 days, to, when you have extra money, you need to save some, right? You got to have a little bit of fun. That's what I said. Divide the pie in thirds. Once you paid your basic expenses, and I don't care if you only have $100, divide that pie up. 30% of it you can save or invest in, 401k or an IRA. 30% of that money, have fun. That's your live life in the moment. You need to have some momentary happiness because you never know what will happen in the future. So that's 30%. You got $100 at the end of the month. $30 goes into savings account, an IRA, a CD. $30 goes into, I don't know, you're not going to have a ton of fun with $30, but you never know. You'd be surprised what you can have if you're creative. But then spend $30 on books, $30 on a course online. You can, if you do that and you make it a habit now and anticipate the day when you'll have $1,000 discretional income, then you spend $300. Then you can buy those Carl Cheat course. You can buy books on Amazon. And then when you start making $100,000 discretionary a year, then you'll have $30,000. Spend it on Amazon. Spend it flying to a guy, an author you've always been interested in. Send somebody a gift. You like a book by somebody, you have a mentor, send them on a trip. Create goodwill between you, reciprocity bias. Give will give, and people will give back. So, a couple key takeaways. You got to start tracking your income. Okay, if it's complicated, get a bookkeeper. One of your first people that you should ever hire. It's not a maid, it's not a cook, it's not a driver, it's not a butler, it's a bookkeeper. Trust me. When I did not get this advice when I was young, and if you don't keep track of it, it gets so complicated you got to go back years later and fix everything. It's a good way to get in trouble with taxes, and just it's a nightmare. I've made that mistake. So now I'm like particular. Keep all your receipts. My friend keeps, Herman is a doctor. He keeps all his receipts in a photo journal, just like you would keep your family pictures, right? That way he never loses them. So get really good on the books, number one. Number two, figure out what your discretionary income is after your life necessities are paid. Then take 30% of that, courses, books, seminars, travel, gifts, anything that doubles back down into your own brain. So the question I have for you that I want you to write in your journal, and I want you to write here on this page so other people can see, we can reply back and forth, is right now, what is the discretionary income that you have available to you? Number one, that'll force you to calculate it. The number two question is, how are you currently spending it? Or what minors are you majoring in financially? Like, what are the areas you're spending money on that you could cut discretionary? And third, what are you going to reinvest in? So you can, like Jack Welch, when he became the CEO of GE, he doubled down. He sold certain businesses that he knew he couldn't be number one or number two in. I think he generated $70 or $100 million, and he doubled down on those businesses that could be good. So for you, what areas in your discretionary can you cut or become creative so you can have the same thing without so much money? Maybe you need coupons. Maybe you need to, try to find a free way to do it. Because oftentimes with the internet, you can find things for free. Then number three, what are you going to reinvest in? For some of you, it's more books. For some of you, it's more audiobooks. For some of you, it's more seminars. Be specific here in your journal, on a piece of paper, and on your on this page right here. Okay? So remember, Amazon.com should become your friend because it's a great place to get a lot of this stuff: audio, Kindles, physical books. Okay? Try to build up. Pass me. Spend more than $32,000, because the good news is if you're spending $32,000, that means your discretionary income's going up. Okay? Double down. Don't be penny wise and dollar foolish. Be dollar wise. Okay? So, see you on the next 67 set. Thanks.